again, this is Ricey and welcome to my channel, The Quest for Wealth. Again, we have Liam here and we are on the second episode of our series, How to Apply for Student Permit in Canada. And this student permit essentially becomes your bridge to apply for permanent residency. On our first series, we did discuss the background of Liam, how he came here, how the application was. He used an agency to apply on his behalf, mainly because, as he said, he is lazy. And he wanted somebody to tell him what to submit, what not to submit, and what he wanted or needed to provide. And therefore, if any of you are on the same boat and needed somebody to tell you just immediately, these are the things that you have to do, you can absolutely take an agent as well. But this is not necessary, or this is not necessarily required by RRCC. Is that correct? Yeah. So you can definitely make the application yourself. If you want to do it yourself, it is absolutely possible. On our second series, we talk about application of student permit at IRCC level. So Liam, when it comes to documentations and general forms, what can you tell our viewers on where to go, what to visit, what to provide?
Well, for general documentations, it really varies for single applicants or with dependents.
Okay.
So once you apply in IRCC, there are a series of questions there. So depends on your answers. They will give you a list for specific documents that they're going to need from you.
Okay, all right. So essentially what he's saying is that visit IRCC in order for you to have a list of documents that you require and the list of forms that is required by the IRCC. See, the thing is that this list changes every now and then because of the essence, the mere fact that it changes. You will have to visit IRCC website itself, and I will link that description or that link in the description below. Click it and you will further understand the documents and the general forms that you need to fill out. Now, when it comes to most important documents that you submitted, why don't you give our viewers some top tips on the various important documents that that comes to your mind?
Well, for the documents, the most important things is your study plan, and most of all is your proof of funds.
Okay, for now, let's do the proof of funds.
Proof of funds. So in my case, what my agency asked me to give them is my pay slips.
Okay.
So what I gave to them is I gave them my complete pay slips from all of my companies.
From birth or?
No. When I started working, so I had to contact my previous HR from my previous companies to give me the complete list of my pay slips.
How many years of complete list is it?
It's probably 6 years because I was working since 2012.
Okay,
Yeah.
and do you think 6 years is necessary?
Not really, but as much as I can provide, I want to give it to them.
Okay.
So I want to prove to the visa officer where my money is coming from.
Okay, alright then. So you submitted your payslip and then
Certificate of employments.
from the different companies.
Yes.
How many companies were these?
These are 3 companies.
3 companies. Okay. 3 companies over what? Over 6 years?
During the 6 years.
6 years. 3 companies over 6 years.
Yeah, I used to jump.
You are a jumper.
Yeah.
Okay. So that certificate of employments and then?
I also provided them the BIR forms.
Okay.
The
BIR is?
I think it's 2316 that we are calling that.
Okay. So BIR is the Bureau of Internal Investigation.
No, Internal Revenue.
Okay, it's the Bureau of Internal Revenue. It's our CRA, or these are the tax people or the tax agency, shall we?
Okay, and then that's
Bank statement?
Oh yeah, bank statement. So you must submit your most recent bank statement to them. At least 3 months of each.
3 months, okay.
Yeah. So beyond 3 months, I think it's not that reliable, and I think the visa officer will not believe that
anymore.
anymore.
Okay. And how much is the proof of funds? for a single
For a
person?
single applicant, they told me it's around 700,000
Pesos.
pesos.
So that's less than 1 million, which
Mhm.
means, does anybody mathematician here, please help us? About 20,000?
Yeah,
About 25,000 Canadian, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's your proof of funds, and you had that amount of money sitting
No.
in the bank. Ah, okay.
So I think I have just a quarter of it.
Okay.
So what I did, I sell my car
Uh-huh.
and then I add it into my bank account.
Okay.
So from there, I did not move that money
Hmm.
for the 3-month period that I'm waiting for my study permit.
So you didn't have any sort of letter of support from a relative
Mhm.
or from a friend or a sister or a family?
Well, that is also an option, but I don't have that connection. And
Okay.
it's very hard to prove it to them.
Right.
So, for example, if it's my parents that's going to give me money, it's very easy because they're my parents.
Correct.
But for example, it's a friend of mine who's going to sponsor me. It's
It
very
becomes questionable.
yeah, it's questionable. Why
Yes.
is your friend going to sponsor you for studies?
Correct.
Because
Yes.
study here is very expensive.
Well, you could say that you will pay it. It's not going to be free anyway,
Mhm.
or it's still
It's still very risky, I would say.
Okay. All right. You mentioned that there is the study plan. What is a
Yes.
study plan?
Study plan. This is, I think, is the very important part of your application
Mhm.
because it summarizes why do you want to study in Canada.
Okay.
Because in a nutshell, you want to study in Canada to become a permanent resident.
Correct.
But the caveat here is when you go apply for study permit,
Mm.
you must prove to them that you're going back to the Philippines or from any country that you came from
After your study.
after you study.
And how do you prove that?
That I would say you have some home ties.
Okay.
I think,
And that's your family.
yeah, your family, any, I think, any
Property?
land, properties,
Right.
you have a business in your country that you're going to go back.
Okay.
So that's kind of hard part of doing this study plan.
Okay.
Because you need to prove to the visa officer that you're going back to your country.
So the content of your study plan letter essentially is that the reason why you wanted to study in Canada
Mhm.
and how will you sustain your studies in Canada?
Yes.
Is that it? What else?
Where did your funds came from? I don't think it's very reasonable to tell them that you're going to apply for permanent residency in the
Okay.
future
All right.
because it contradicts the sense that you're going back to your country, right?
Okay. So then the whole idea of a study plan is that to prove to the immigration officers that one, you are a legal student applicant in Canada. Second, you are able to sustain your studies. The third one is that you will go back as soon as your studies finished, and therefore you do not have any intention to apply for permanent residency. That is the whole purpose of a study
Study
plan.
plan, yeah.
Okay.
I can advise you the best way to write a best study plan letter is to ask yourself. So
What should they ask themselves?
ask yourself, how can I sustain my living here in Canada?
Mm.
Why do I want to study here in Canada? Well, in case I can take it in the Philippines, right?
Yeah. Mm.
Then where did my money came from?
Mm.
So
Well, what were your reasons then? Why did you have to come to Canada? You could take the certification in the Philippines.
well, I just made a story.
What was the story?
Okay, so I'm in a international bank working. I'm working in international bank way back in the Philippines.
Okay.
2018.
Citibank.
No, it's
Oh.
JP Morgan Chase Bank. So it's a US bank. Yes.
JP Morgan Chase. Hello.
So and then I wrote in my letter that
Hmm.
the progression it's very narrow for me
Okay.
because all of my colleagues have their designation, their CPAs, they're graduated from very prestige schools,
Yes.
and I don't have that edge. So
Ah.
what I proved to my
Letter.
visa officer
Yes.
is if I have a Canadian degree, I might as well have a fight with them.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
And guys, you could make the same story. Yeah, that's a very convincing story. story indeed.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be a huge company in itself.
No.
I mean, if a person could also say that if he has a family who has a business,
Mhm.
then he would require an international education in order to scale the business, I
Yep.
guess.
Mhm.
And even more if a person is working in a multinational company, then you could make the same scenario or the same idea or the same concept that an international education could propel you and have a faster growth within your company and have that edge into promotion and be, I don't know, the CEO.
Probably 50 years from now.
So we are now going to discuss the most common hurdles or the biggest hurdle that Liam had to overcome during the application of his student permit.
So I would say if you're working with an agency, it's the anxiety.
Anxiety.
Yeah,
of-
because you're very anxious of waiting. What's the
Ah.
next process?
Yes.
Because it's agency, you're not the only customer or client that they have.
Mm.
So they're handling a lot of clients.
Mm.
So it usually takes me time to ask them, what's the next process? What's the next process? Then they go into reply 3 days after.
Yeah.
So that's the negative side of having an agency.
Oh. Are you saying that you did not have any access to your account at IRCC?
No, I don't.
Ah,
Because
right.
if you have an account with IRCC,
Yes.
that is already a red flag.
Okay.
So if they give you access to their IRCC, it's not legit. It's not legitimate.
Right. IRCC have got a legitimate list
Mhm.
of agents that could represent people to apply for a student permit in Canada. And if this company is not listed in the list of IRCC, do not go with them. Do not have them process your documents. He did not have access to his IRCC account. Only the agents
Yeah.
had the access to the IRCC account of his application. And if these agents provided him the access to the IRCC account, you have to beware and be very cautious because that agency would be illegitimate. Why is that so?
Because IRCC see agency as a representative. So
Yeah.
agency represent you
Yeah.
as their applicant.
All right.
So if they give you, it's like you are applying directly to IRCC and not the representative itself.
Right, okay. Oh, really? That's amazing to know. Okay, so how long was the timeline from the day you received your LOA and received your student permit?
I started my student application May 2018.
May 2018?
Yep. And
That's
then,
when you had your LOA, you started
no,
with
I
NBCC.
just started with applying LOA with NBCC.
Okay, so that's the
May
very first step.
Yeah, May
Okay.
2018. Then I keep rushing my things with my agent. I keep on emailing, what's the update, what do I need to provide?
Well, you paid them
Yeah,
100,000 pesos,
exactly.
come on! You deserve that. Okay.
So after a couple of months, I completed my requirements around July, June, July, or August. Then they're going to review all of their documents. Then they will ask you if they're missing or lacking any documents. So,
Okay.
so you have a time frame that
Okay.
you can give the lacking documents to them.
So you applied your LOA with NBCC in May, and you received your LOA in
Around May, July.
July. So that's 2 months. Okay, and then
So during that 2 months, I'm also starting to gather all the requirements that I would need.
okay, so you're absolutely positive that you will receive the LOA.
Yeah. There's there's
There's
nothing
no
wrong.
reason
Yeah.
for you to doubt otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So around July, I started submitting all of the lacking documents that the agency is requiring of me.
Okay.
Okay, so around August or September, they already finalized that my document is complete and ready for lodging. My proof of funds, I need to gather a new set of documents
Why?
because as I have said earlier,
Mm.
the more recent the document is, the better.
Okay.
So it's, as I told you, 3 months. It's the most reasonable
number of months.
number of months that your
Which
bank
is
statement is
latest.
valid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's November 19th.
Oh,
that
okay.
they submitted my application.
Okay.
And I got my student permit approval December 10.
Less than a month.
Yes, it's around 20 to 25 days.
So that's 5 months
Mhm.
to complete
All
all the documents
documents.
that you required.
Yes.
And then November 19, it was submitted.
Mhm.
And then less than a month after, he received the student permit.
Yeah.
Is it the same timeline these days? Have you been speaking to other students as
Considering
well?
the pandemic right now, I don't believe it's going to be the exact same thing.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend of mine who's applying today.
Yes.
He said that it usually takes 40 days for the approval.
Approval of?
Student permit. It's the average.
On IRCC level?
Yes, it's the
Ah.
average.
Okay.
But it's not the exact same number. So sometimes you can take 60 days.
Yeah. Well, but then even if you say it's 60 days, 2 months really is not so long.
Yeah.
At least for me, it's not so long, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I flew to Canada December 28, 2018.
One thing that I was hearing about
Mm.
TRV.
TRV is temporary resident visa.
Ah, okay.
Okay,
Alright.
so-
And what is it for?
Student permit and work permit, it's under TRV. So
Okay.
you're a resident in Canada but on a temporary basis.
But being a student in Canada, are you allowed to work?
Yes, you're allowed to work for 20 hours a week only.
Okay. And if you go more than 20 hours?
I think it's going to be a red flag when you apply for permanent residency.
Ah.
I use here a student from, I could say, he's a student from another country,
Yeah.
and he worked in Ontario for more than, it's like a full-time job, but he's a
Uh-huh.
student,
Uh-huh.
and he got sent back to his country.
Oh,
I think
okay.
he's banned for some years, so he can reapply.
Oh, okay.
He can reapply, but he's banned for some years,
Alright. Then. Work for 20 hours in a week.
in a week.
In a week, and that's the maximum you can do. And if you do more than 20 hours, then you risk not being able to apply for permanent residency.